Hey everyone, welcome back to the Syntax Byte. It's Ryan here, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to use Folium to add interactive maps to your Jupyter notebooks. So we're going to go over the basic use of Folium, how to get a map going, and then we're going to go over a variety of features that can help you use maps to visualize geographic data, whatever kind of data you might be working with, whether that's points, lines, entire areas, or if you want to create a map with different areas of the map shaded differently depending on certain data in those counties, provinces, states, countries, etc. So to get started here, the first thing I'm going to do is just quickly do a Folium install. I will leave a link to the GitHub page for the project down below, which will have the latest install instructions. In my case, I'm using Conda, so I can just go ahead and copy this command here and paste that in my terminal. I've already installed it, but you don't want to forget that step. Otherwise, you will get an error that Folium can't be found when you go to import it. Alright, so with that done, we can go ahead and start using Folium. I'm going to go ahead and close my terminal here. We're back, we get a fresh notebook. The very first thing we want to do is import Folium. So we can do that just like that. I'm going to leave that in its own cell, and we get the import success there. It doesn't give us any output. It just makes the library available for us to use. So we're going to run through a few different examples here with Folium. The very first thing I'm going to show you how to do is just how to get a basic map going. So we can do m, where that's just going to be a variable to hold our map, is going to be Folium.map. So this is the main sort of map class. We can give it a location, which I'm going to make equal to 37 and negative 97.5. And this is going to center our map on the United States. So we're going to start off doing some initial plotting around the United States, and then in a final example we'll do some plotting around Canada, but you can plot your stuff anywhere in the world that you choose. However, this is going to determine the location that the map is kind of centered on when it first shows up. Of course, the user can move it around. We're going to do a zoom start level of 5. 5 is, quite zoomed out, kind of looking at most of the US is going to be visible when we're at zoom level 5. And I'm going to specify that tiles equals OpenStreetMap. So there are basically a variety of themes that you can use for your maps, depending on how far you're zooming in, what you're trying to show, that sort of thing. One might work better than another. You do have a few options in terms of tiles, and we'll use some of the different options throughout our examples today so you can get an idea. But built in, we have the options of OpenStreetMap, Stamen Terrain, Stamen Toner, Stamen Watercolor, CartoDB Positron, and CartoDB Dark Matter. So we'll look at a couple of other ones today as we're going through. I'm going to go ahead and put M there just so that it is returned from the Jupyter cell, and that will allow it to display automatically within Jupyter. So we'll go ahead and run that. And you can see, as I had mentioned, we get a map that is centered around the United States. It's a little difficult because if we go to this level, this would be zoom level 4, I believe. We can see more, but we don't get as much detail in terms of the colors. We don't actually get any coloring. So I think a little bit zoomed in works a little bit better as a default view for our map, even if the entire country is not necessarily visible at that view. One thing you might notice is that it's quite tall, and I'm having a little bit of trouble in my viewport here actually, making sure that I can see the whole thing at once. So I can also just specify a width and a height if I want. I was using 1,750 earlier, but that might actually create a problem here. Yeah, so you can see that's actually bigger than my viewport here and causing scroll bars. But why don't we do 500 and maybe 450. So we definitely want more width, but probably not more height. So we can do 800 maybe. Yeah, let's do like 500 and 900. Got to play around with it a little bit here just to get it better, but Yeah, I'm happy enough with that. We're going to be doing some plotting kind of in this area, so that'll allow us to see the points that we're going to put on the map. So this gets us a basic map up and running. The user can zoom in and out and look around. That's not a problem. But of course, if you're putting this in here, you actually probably want to show something on the map. So probably the most basic thing that you can start with showing on the map is just a basic marker. So I've got the coordinates here for Detroit, which is one of the American cities that I have visited. And so we'll go ahead and put that in there. And then to do a basic marker, all you have to do is folium.marker. You give it the location, which is going to be equal to Detroit. And that's all you absolutely have to give. There's more marker customization available, and we'll do another marker, and I can show you that. But that is all that's actually required to get something on the map. And then we do .add to m. So we kind of are gradually adding things onto that map. And then again, I would like to return m so that we actually display the map. And so at this point, you can see that we have the same map, but we have this basic blue marker. We can't click on it. It doesn't really do anything. It's blue. There's no icon, but we do have a basic blue marker showing the location of Detroit. And you can see that there we go. It's centered on downtown Detroit, just across the border from Windsor. And so there we go. We have a marker. So what if I want to add another marker to this map, but I want to make this marker a little bit different, a little bit more exciting than the marker, because the basic marker works well if you don't need to differentiate between your markers, but you may have a variety of different locations. You want them to be different colors, have different icons, and you might want to be able to click on them to get a little bit more information. And so I'm going to show you how to do that with this one. So we'll add another location. Another city that I visited is Phoenix. So we're going to add in the location here of Phoenix. And so that's Phoenix. That's the location. And you'll note with these locations, by the way, that it is in latitude, longitude format. So if you've seen my previous videos on Open Route Service, I'll have a card here showing you how to get directions on Open Route Service. You will know that Open Route Service typically returns coordinates in longitude, latitude. Not sure why it chose that format, but that is the format. However, when we're working with Folium, we want to make sure that we're always working in a latitude, longitude format. So once again, we can do another call here, folium.marker. And this time I'm going to say location is equal to Phoenix, and then I'm going to pass some additional data to customize our marker. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make the marker a different color. I actually want to make this marker orange because Phoenix is a sun destination. So I'm going to make the color orange so that I know that, okay, it's a sun destination. So to do that, I can set the icon. I have to set a custom icon to actually change the color. And so you do folium.icon, and then you can do color equals orange. Now we could just leave it at that, but I'm going to add a little bit more customization into our icon. So I'm going to say icon color is equal to red. So this is going to be the icon that's actually on top. So where we see this sort of white thing, by default that's an info sign. When you change the color of the icon, it uses a slightly different icon. It uses an info sign. By default that is white. I want it to be red. So I'm going to say icon color is red. And then I'm also going to say icon equals sun-o. So we get a sun icon instead of a little eye info sign icon. So these icon names come from Font Awesome 4. I will try to leave a link in the description for Font Awesome 4. I believe Font Awesome 5 and 6 are out now. And the icon names for those are different. So you need to make sure that you have the icon names for Font Awesome 4. You can also use the Glyphicons icon set. So you can use the Glyphicons icon set as well. If you are using Font Awesome, like I am in this case, you need to say prefix equals FA for Font Awesome. Otherwise, it will default to the Glyphicons. So that's about all I need to do for my icon. I'm happy with that level of customization. I also want to add a little pop-up, and I want some text on there that says that I visited this place in February of 2020. So I visited Phoenix in February 2020, When I click on it, I want to be able to get some information that that's when that visit occurred. And finally, it may not be obvious from this case to the user where this thing is pointing. So I'm going to add a tooltip, and I'm just going to label it with Phoenix. And then that way, when the user hovers over, they know, in fact, okay, that's Phoenix that they're looking at. So we're going to do a .add to M. We can go ahead and break up this line here just a little bit so we can see it all on the screen at one time. And then, of course, we're going to go ahead and return M again so we can see the map again. So go ahead and do that. We see here that we have our two markers. Now, of course, I haven't reset the map or anything, so it's just adding another marker on, and we've kept using the same map. So we see both of our markers there. We can see when I hover over this one, it says Phoenix. When I hover over this one, it doesn't say anything. And then when I click on this, it says I visited this in February of 2020. So there's a little pop-up there. You can go ahead and X that out. We see that we have an orange pin with a red icon, and that the icon is a sun. So everything here is as we specified. We got the customizations that we were looking for. Okay, so the final thing that I want to do is I just want to draw a straight line from Phoenix to Detroit. Now you can get very complex with your lines and have a bunch of different points. In this case, I'm just going to draw a simple line, but you could have as many points as you want. And of course, in my Open Route Service videos, I've often used these polylines to actually draw various routes that the service will return so that we can visualize them. But today, just going to do a simple line, show you how to do that, and then we'll go from there. So when it comes to doing a basic line, you can do folium.polyline and do locations. In this case, we're going to have two. Like I said, you can have many, many more lines, so you don't have to do a straight line or anything. We're going to say between Detroit and Phoenix. The order of them doesn't matter. And then we'll say color of the line is going to be green. And we will do a .add2 to add that to the map. And we will return the map. And so we see now we have our 2 points, and we have a line between them. So all right, that's a pretty good example. At this point, we've learned to put pins on the map. We've learned how to customize those pins and use tooltips and pop-ups, as well as how to actually draw lines on the map. So the next thing we're going to cover, we're going to start with a brand new example. We're going to cover how to actually shade an area of the map. And so we're just going to do essentially like a fill on an area of the map. So a lot of cities in the US and Canada as well, and around the world really, have city bounds. And, of course, it's not a surprise that cities have city bounds, but some of them are quite interesting because a lot of metropolitan areas are made up of many cities. And Phoenix is no exception to this. If we zoom in on Phoenix, we can see that there's Phoenix itself, there's Glendale, there's Scottsdale, there's somewhere here is like Tempe. So there's a lot of different municipalities that make up the Phoenix area. So if you want to know what is actually in Phoenix, as in the municipality of Phoenix, the city of Phoenix, we can go ahead and visualize the city boundary. So I've gone ahead and downloaded the city boundary GeoJSON from Phoenix's ArcGIS REST services directory here. I'll leave a link to this in the description. Essentially, I found it just by searching for Phoenix City Bounds GeoJSON. But basically, you have to do a query. You have to set 1 = 1 on the where. Make sure that return geometry is true. And then make sure that your format is GeoJSON and go get. And it will actually return the bounds of the city. And so that's how I downloaded that. So I've got that downloaded here as citybounds.json. Like I said, we're not going to work with the same map the whole time. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and create a new Folium map. So I'm going to reset M and say M is equal to Folium map. Location, at this time, I just want it centered around Phoenix. I want tiles to be equal to, we're going to try out Stamen Toner. And we're going to do a zoom start of 10. So zooming in on that city. We can go ahead and see what that map looks like. So we can see we've got a pretty good view of the Phoenix area here. And yeah, we've got a bit of a different look to our map compared to the one above. This is a bit of a cleaner, you know, overview look. It's not as detailed, of course, but this is just a nice little visualization of the area here. So I want to go ahead and shade in the bounds of the city of Phoenix so that we can actually tell the difference between Phoenix and the other municipalities that are around. So in order to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Folium.GeoJSON class. And so we'll do Folium.GeoJSON, and then I need to point it to that JSON file. So that's in citybounds.json. And once again, you'll want to just download the appropriate GeoJSON file for whatever you're working on. I'm going to say name is equal to GeoJSON. That's the format. And we're going to give it a style function. Well, why don't we hold... Well, we'll give it a style function. So we'll give it a style function. What we can do here is... So we'll do a lambda. It's going to take X, and it's going to return a dictionary with fill color. Is going to be black. So hashtag 000,000. Color, so this is going to be the border around the area. Color is going to be also black. And then we can go ahead and say that the fill opacity, and this is going to be the opacity of the center of the fill, so the area that's actually filled, not the border. We're going to set that to 0.5. And then we're going to have a dash array, and that's going to do a dashed line around the edge instead of a solid line. I'm going to set that to 4. You can look up, there's some information on Mozilla's website about doing dash arrays for SVGs. This is the same format as that, so you can go ahead and look that up in order to determine, you know, how to actually use the dash array. I'm going to go ahead and close off my dictionary because it's a lambda. It will return this dictionary. You'll notice we didn't use X. We didn't use X. I will go ahead and explain that in just a second, but I want to get our visualization out here. And we'll do an add to M. And I'm going to go ahead and break this up because we're a little bit beyond the bounds here. Okay. So we're pulling in the data from citybounds.json. That's a GeoJSON format file. And then we have a style function. Normally what a style function would do is it would go ahead and loop through each of the features. So we're going to get the feature in here. If we go ahead and look at our file, we'll just open this in a new browser tab. You'll see that it is of type feature collection, but that there's only one feature in here. What this means is that we would have access to this properties City of Phoenix, but it's only going to run our style function one time. And so the reality is, even though it's a function, we're really just passing in a static array because we have a single feature here. If you had several features, maybe you had boundaries, for example, for all of the municipalities, and you wanted to make them all a different color or a different alpha level or something like that, then you could go ahead and actually use those properties to determine things like the color and the border as well. So we can go ahead and do this, and we're going to return M. And so we can see that we can actually see, and it's a bit of a complex boundary around Phoenix. Some areas where it's not in there, and then it is. But it's a unique city boundary here. But we can see what is actually in the city of Phoenix and what is outside of the city of Phoenix. So yeah, so as I was explaining, the fill color here is black. By default, it's a blue. Color sets the color for the border. Fill opacity 0.5 sets how opaque this middle part is. And then the dash array 4 basically means that there's like 4 sections for every like one break. So that's how you can go ahead and shade an area of the map. The last thing I'm going to show you how to do is actually have multiple areas of the map shaded, like provinces or states, and shade them according to some other data that you had. So for this one, we're going to go ahead and import pandas. I have a CSV here with province populations. So this is the population of Canadian provinces. If you are working with US states, there is a file in this GitHub repository under examples, data, and then I believe it is usstates.json. And it wants to visualize it, which is pretty cool actually in GitHub. But so we can see that this is the US states file. So if you wanna do states, all you need is this file, and it's available on GitHub. In my case, they don't seem to have a file for Canadian provinces, so I had to go searching. But it wasn't too hard to find a GeoJSON file. I got this province and territories of Canada. The only thing was that I did have to go ahead and modify. So if we go here, we can open it in browser tab. So we'll see that each of the provinces is a feature. So we know that we're actually going to go ahead and have multiple of those features. You could visualize this using the GeoJSON function as well, and then use that style function to go ahead and determine the color and things like that. So each of them is, and then we see we have properties. We see the prov name English and the prov name French. The thing is, for some reason, this was in an array. They were all set up in an array with one item, and I can't traverse that using Folium for whatever reason. So I have opened an issue. I don't believe there's currently a way. I've looked at the code. I don't believe there's currently any way to traverse into an array. Perhaps by the time you're watching this video, there will be. But in my case, I just had to simply edit the file. So just be aware of that. If you're not doing US states and like me, you need to go and find your own GeoJSON file and use that for the Choropleth map, So anyway, we're going to do this province population data that I've got here. So to do that, we're going to do import pandas as PD. And that will allow us to import it into a pandas data frame from the CSV very easily. And Folium works with that pandas data frame. So we're going to create a new map again. I'm going to do Folium.map. This one I'm going to say height is equal to, I don't know, 500, 600. What did we use up here? 500. I'm going to say location, where our map is centered, is going to be on 60, -95. So this is going to center the map on Canada. I'm going to use the tiles of CartoDB positron. We're going to use a zoom start of 4. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and just return the map. We can check out what it looks like. Okay, so we see we have a map. It's centered on Canada. It looks pretty good. I really like this this tile setting. It looks really good. It looks good at the city level, and it looks good at the macro level too. So I really like that. Okay, so I'm going to work in here, and we're going to create a new map every time. Of course, up until now, we've kind of been creating a map in one cell and then adding to it, slowly building that map as we go forth. In this case, I'm just going to kind of recreate the map and do everything in one cell. That's totally fine as well. Perfectly valid way to work with Folium. So we're going to go ahead and use the Choropleth feature. So to get started, we do folium.choropleth. And we start with our geodata. So our geodata is going to be that province's data, or if you were using the US states or whatever else you wanted to, visualize. So I'm going to do /Canadian provinces modified, which is my file name, .json. Okay. The next thing I'm going to do is my actual data that I'm trying to visualize. So I'm trying to visualize province populations. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that in, and this has to be a pandas data frame. So you can go ahead and import it on the spot, which is what I'm going to do. You could have had a data frame that you've already done some transformations on. Maybe you've pulled in from SQL. Anything like that would work in this case. You can do pd.read.csv in our case, province pop.json. Hit a comma. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to provide columns. And columns is province and population. And so these are the columns in our file here. We're going to do province and population. So the first is what we're matching on. So we're matching on the province name, and population is the data point that we're visualizing, okay? So we do province and population, and then we do key on. So key on is going to actually explain to Folium, okay, how do I actually, within this file here, actually find this name to match, right? Because we have this JSON file, and it's like, okay, there's a few things here. There's a year, there's an area code, there's a French name, there's a type. There's a lot of things under properties here. There's a latitude and longitude for some reason. So how do we actually traverse this and find that? So what we do is, as long as you're not stuck in an array like I was, you can just use the JavaScript object notation. So you do feature dot, and it has to start with feature. It always has to start with feature. Properties dot prov name en in my case, because I want to match on the English province name, because that's what's in my data. Next thing we do is fill color. Now you have a few different fill color options. These are like color scales. So I'm just going to copy and paste them here so that you have them. So there's a few different options you can do. These ones will be like 3 colors. Other ones will be, you know, just 2 colors. Why don't we go ahead and use yellow, orange, red? Why not? So we can go ahead and use yellow, orange, red as our fill color, and that's going to be our color scale. The final thing I'm going to do is name equals population. And you will see why we do this in a second. We're going to do this for the layer control. So if you're not going to add layer control, you don't have to add a population, a name equals population. It won't otherwise show up anywhere. So then we can do an add to M. And it's mad. Because I put province pop.json instead of province pop.csv. It's kind of funny. Okay. Awesome. So we can see at this point that we have a visualization of the populations of Canadian provinces. We have a scale up here that gives us information about which colors correspond to which population. One thing to note here, if you're familiar with Canada, is there's really not very many people living in the north here, but there are about 1 million people in each of Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and, you know, more than 500,000 people or so in these provinces here. So we have some pretty significant variation happening here in this first block. So we could consider changing up our bins a little bit. What you can do is you can set custom bins using the bins thing here. So you can first of all set the amount. So for instance, if we want to do 10, we can do that. And now you can see we have more bins, but it still doesn't actually differentiate between any of these other provinces. So, you know, I mean, one way to do it is just to make a bunch of bins, say 20 bins. And now it's kind of differentiated between. You can see these are slightly darker color, I believe, than these other ones. It's still a little bit difficult. So you can play around with it. You can also just specify bins directly using an array. So I'm not too worried about it for this case, but if I was working on this for some really serious visualization stuff, I'd probably spend more time playing around with that. Nonetheless, we're here to focus on Folium. So I'm going to show you how to do a couple more things just before we go. So right now we have on Folium, we have something that's called like a layer. And we may want the ability to turn off and on this layer. So all we have to do to gain that ability is say folium.LayerControl. And that doesn't take anything. And then we just do add to M. And so we'll get this little widget over here. And yeah, when I said that we had the name, and you'd see why, this is essentially the name right there. So that's where population, the name shows up. We can go ahead and check it on, check it off. So this is, you know, pretty useful if you had multiple of these Choropleth layers. Maybe you had a layer that was state level, maybe you had a layer that was county level, and you want to be able to toggle them on and off on the same map. You could do that. And then the last thing you can do is kind of like Google Maps or something. You might want the ability to actually have multiple of these styles. So maybe you want a style that's a little bit more realistic and then a style that is not, and you want the user to be able to toggle between them. So we can go ahead and do that as well. All we have to do to add a second layer of these tiles is do Folium dot tile layer, and then we do tiles equals, and then the tiles that we want. So I'm going to do stamen terrain because I want the ability to see the terrain. And I do add to M. So if we go ahead and do that, you can see that nothing happens initially, but we can go ahead and switch between the different types of tiles. So if I want to do stamen terrain, now I've got terrain tiles. So I can turn this on and off, and I can toggle between the terrain tiles, which show me all the mountains and everything like that, and then I can toggle back to this, which is better for streets. So that's essentially all I wanted to show with Folium. I think those are the main features that anyone who's getting started with visualization in Folium would need to know how to use to make the visualizations that they want to make. And I think if you understand how to use these features, you're off to a great start being able to use Folium to do some pretty useful visualization. So that's it for the video today, guys. Definitely give a like if it helped you out. Subscribe to the channel because I do lots of Python stuff on the channel. Cover lots of libraries. Covered Open Route Service a lot in the past. And so doing lots of stuff like that here on the channel. So definitely subscribe and hit that notification bell if you do want to be notified when I post a new video. And I will see you in the next video. Peace.